What's going on, guys? Play by Play Gamer here, back with another Epic 7 video, and today we're going over the balance adjustment preview that is going to be incoming, I believe, in February, or no, scheduled for 1/21, so January 21st. Here we go. So we got a decent amount of 5-star heroes. We have, let's see, 2 5-star Moonlight heroes, Briar, Iseria, and Specimen Sez getting buffs. So by Iseria finally getting something good, and Spec says, I don't know what he's gonna get, but I don't have him. I know that a lot of people have said that maybe like 1 or 2 things and he can become OP. So we'll see. We have, let's see, 3 5-star Covenant heroes, Kawerik. Haste buffs are incoming finally. And Yuna, we're also getting 3 4-stars, 1 4-star Moonlight, free spirit Tieria. So she is the free 4-star Moonlight hero that they give everyone that's plus 15. She's getting buffs. So I have used her in the past and she's okay. So I'm kind of excited to see what else they give her. We're getting silk buffs, Khawazu, and 3-star Captain Rikoris buffs. We're also getting some buffs to the 4-star artifact Flower Shower. So here we go. Briar Iseria. It looks like her Witch's Curse, upon receiving lethal damage, grants immortality to the caster for 1 turn. Immortality effect can only be activated once every 5 turns. So this one is her passive. A successful attack inflicts additional damage, increases hit chance by 25%, max 35%. So a lot of people have said she doesn't have any kind of survivability. She's either super speed nuker or slow type of nuker, or super speed debuffer, or very, very slow AoE nuke. But now you can kind of play around with that because she'll have that immortality. And I guess the interesting thing is that it's 5 turns. It can only be activated once every 5 turns. So I don't know if that's too long, but at least if you have her go maybe like on turn 2, or if you have her even go first turn, she'll have that kind of like that immortality that Melissa has. It gives her a chance to survive and do something after her S3. So her Cursed Thorn, this is her S3, attacks all enemies with a Cursed Thorn Bush, dispelling all buffs with a 75%, and now they maxed it to a 100% chance to make them unable to be buffed for 2 turns. Before it was max 85%, and I've used her a bit in the past, and 85% is very inconsistent. Anything that's not 100% is hit or miss. It's a 50-50 shot. When you want it to land, it's not going to land. So at least now it's 100% chance. So you can build her with much more effectiveness to kind of almost guarantee that you get that. So that's pretty nice. So it says Briar Witch's area was adjusted so that she is more influential on the battlefield. First, Witch's Curse will be modified to grant immortality. So giving her a chance to do something other than maybe just her S3. And then they're maxing out her Cursed Thorn to 100% chance to decrease attack and make all enemies unable to be buffed. So we'll see whether or not that gives her a spot in the meta. I'm not quite sure if this will see more play from her, or see more players using her. But then again, 100% chance is still very nice, and now she's got that some sort of damage mitigation, right? Specimen Sez, so Dreamy Iron Mace. Before, attacks with an Iron Mace with a 50% chance to stun for 1 turn. Now it's still that 50% chance to stun for 1 turn. Upon successfully stunning the enemy, increases combat readiness of the caster by 25%. So he is pushing himself up by 25%. The interesting thing about Specimen Sez is that he has pretty high base speed already. So this can like just kind of speed him through that combat readiness bar. But we got to see. So it's just something additional to help him kind of cycle his turns a bit faster. Evil Claws attacks all enemies with Evil Claws with a 45% chance to stun for 1 turn. So now it's a 60% chance to stun for 1 turn. So his stun chance was increased, and also his damage dealt was increased for Evil Claws. That's his S2, I believe. 45% is almost like a 50-50, but now it went up to 60%, and they also increased his damage. So his S2 is now a little bit more viable to use instead of maybe S1 or S3 on like your first turn. So if you want to go for those stuns and deal a bit more damage, you can. So Evil Claws, after it's awakened, it's that 60% chance for 1 turn, but I don't know, it's just a 60% chance. I guess it's kind of weird that they did it without the awakening. But once it's awakened, fully awakened, S2 attacks all enemies with Evil Claws with a 60% chance to stun for 1 turn before increasing combat readiness of the caster by 50%. So he's getting increased combat readiness by 50%, and then on S1, that's 25% increase in combat readiness with a 50% chance to stun. Stun chance is very high here. It's looking very high. Light Storm attacks with a Light Storm, inflicting extinction. This is his S3, and resetting cooldown for his skill when the enemy is defeated. Penetrates defense by 30% or by 100% when the enemy is stunned. So his thing, you still want to have stuns on the opposing units, but it says if this skill is available when an ally except for the caster is attacked, has a 20% chance to counterattack. So he's got a built-in, Elbrus, right? Pretty much built-in counter mechanic now. That's going to be really interesting, especially since he's going to be countering, giving everyone a chance to stun here, or giving himself a chance to stun, and pushing his combat readiness up by 25%. So he's potentially going to be flying down that combat readiness bar. So I'm really interested to see how people start building him. I'm assuming like a tanky, bruiser-ish type of hero. Now that he's getting combat readiness, he has an Elbrus. He can penetrate defense when they are stunned. So now he can stun on his off turn. So you don't even need to build him on a counter set because he has that built-in counter. That's going to be pretty crazy. Kawerik is getting some buffs. Now his dimensional corridor, it attacks the enemy in a dimensional corridor with a 75% or max 100% chance to dispel 2 buffs before increasing skill cooldowns by 1 turn. So before it was dispelling only 1 buff, but now it's getting a chance to dispel 2 buffs. So that's going to help with barrier and immunity, right? Let's see, what else did they do here? Dimensional Explosion. This locks all enemies within a subspace before triggering an explosion. Penetrates defense by 30% when the caster is granted increased speed. So that was before. Now after the buff, it attacks all enemies with an explosion, silencing for 1 turn before granting stealth to the caster for 2 turns. Penetrates defense by 30%. So it looks like he gained a silence for 1 turn, and then he gets stealth for 2 turns. So it's going to give him increased survivability, and he is pretty much AoE silencing everybody. So giving your team just a little bit more of, providing your team with a bit more utility, right? So defense penetration on Dimensional Explosion will be applied by default. This skill can now penetrate 30% of all enemies' defense. That as well. So they're removing that condition that he needs that increased speed in order to penetrate defense. So that means that he's going to penetrate 30% defense regardless if he has that speed buff or not. It says this skill can now penetrate 30% of the enemy's defense, inflict silence, and grant stealth to Kawerik to better prepare himself for following turns. So that I think can be pretty lethal. He's getting stealth. Stealth is always nice to have on your units. He's getting an AoE silence, and he's penetrating defense. To me, that sounds pretty busted, but we gotta see how well he does. He is a fire unit, so then again, he is getting that Dispel 2 buff, so it looks like you can kind of build him a bit different now. Now maybe he'll take some effectiveness. Maybe you build him a little bit tankier. I don't know. We'll see. Now that he has that unconditional penetrating defense by 30%. Haste. So the long-awaited haste buffs are finally here. Let's see what we got. So his Envoy Scythe before attacks with an enormous scythe with a 40% chance, max 50%, to inflict bleeding for 2 turns. Now with a 60% chance to inflict bleeding for 2 turns. So they increased it from 50 to 60. Oh wait, no. It's a max 70%. So they increased it from a 50% to a 70% chance to inflict bleeding for 2 turns. And he steals 1 buff if the target is an Earth Elemental hero. So that, I mean, I like the steal buff mechanic. However, it's very conditional because it has to be an Earth Elemental hero, right? So that means that Haste, his skill here is still very situational. It's nice if you have him on your team and they happen to have some type of Earth Elemental hero, but I'm not sure how useful that will be. Maybe if it was just steal 1 buff from the target, or a chance to steal 1 buff from the target, I think I might have agreed with that a little bit more. But okay, let's take a look at Blood Rend. Attacks the enemy with a scythe and recovers the health of all allies. Before the amount recovered increases proportional to how much damage he deals, and increases by an additional 50% when the enemy is bleeding. So now they removed that increases by an additional 50%, and they've left the amount recovered increases proportional to the damage dealt. They've also added a conditional increase to amount recovered is now applied by default. Okay, so it looks like that 50% when the enemy is bleeding is just now there by default. So I'm not sure if that's just 50% by itself, or it still includes that they have to be bleeding, but it says that it's already included by default. So once you attack, he recovers health of all allies plus that, I'm assuming 50%. Let's see, what else do we have here? Vampiric Seal. So this one I believe is his S3. Attacks all enemies with Envoy Scythe with a 85% or max 100% chance each to inflict 3 bleeding effects for 2 turns. So it went from a 75% to 100% chance to inflict bleeding for 2 turns. When there are 3 or fewer enemies, damage dealt increases with fewer enemies. Detonates any bleeding effects inflicted on Earth Elemental targets at the end of the turn. So again, seems very situational, very Earth geared, very geared towards Earth units. I'm not sure, why they're trying to build him. I mean, he is a fire unit, but I'm not sure why they're trying to push that Earth Elemental advantage on him. It seems kind of like a trend recently with the Carmen Rose skill change. Maybe they're trying to push more people into Golem for whatever reason. I know that they've been talking about making some adjustments to Golem, so that could be some foreshadowing. It says previously Vampiric Seal could inflict a maximum of 3 bleeding effects on enemies. However, through this balance adjustment, under the assumption that Haste attacks 4 enemies, the chances will become 100%, along with a maximum of 12 bleeding effects, 3 effects on each enemy. Finally, he can detonate bleeding effects instantly after inflicting the effects if the enemies are Earth Elemental. His cumulative potential damage output will increase significantly. So I do agree with that. However, again, it's on Earth Elemental targets. So the opposing teams, I don't see him being brought into RTA as any kind of PvP yet, just because it really relies on them having some sort of Earth Elemental hero on the opposing team. And still, he doesn't have any kind of survivability, right? He's giving health to your entire team, but then again, there's nothing to keep him alive. So we'll see. Let me know what you guys think about his buff. Is it what you were asking for? Let me know in the comment section below. But all right, let's continue. Yuna is getting some buffs. So now her upgrade buffs all enemies with a drone and increases attack for 2 turns, and it acquires 3 focus instead of 2, which is Really interesting because now that means you can get her meteor cannon even faster. She also, on her meteor cannon, gets an extra turn. Getting an extra turn in this game can be really, really powerful. I'm interested to see how people are going to use her now. I know some people still use Yuna in a few different cases, like to push up as a combat readiness pusher, attack buffer. So it says Yuna will be adjusted in terms of an increase in the amount of focus acquired by using the skill upgrade and by adding an extra turn to her meteor cannon. She'll become more readily able to gain focus in order to use a meteor cannon. And right after, she's going to get another turn so she can cycle her turns faster. So as the attack cycle has been improved for meteor cannon and more focus can be acquired, we hope that they can better utilize Yuna. So definitely seems like if you're building her as a support, like speed support, she's going to be popping off with that meteor cannon pretty quickly. Free Spirit Tieria. Now its energy wave releases condensed energy at all enemies, recovering health. This is her S2. Health of it proportional to the damage dealt. Cooldown of the skill decreases by 1 turn when an enemy is defeated. So now instead of reducing the cooldown, it resets the cooldown when an enemy is defeated. That is awesome. I brought her into Hellray to do a Dagger Sikaar challenge with the warrior ones, and I would really have liked to have this buff during that time. So one of the ads, so the key was to get the ads very, very close to low HP, hitting with the S2 so I can guarantee the reduction of that S2. But now, even as a farmer, it might make her viable. However, her S3 still is a single target damage. But I think that still, if this is what you have, she is free plus 15. She also has an artifact, can definitely still make her very, very useful in PvE. Silk is getting some buffs. Now she's gaining 1 focus at the start of the turn and consumes 1 focus when attacked, increasing combat readiness by 15%. And she's getting increased damage for her storm arrow. Silk will be given an increase in combat readiness upon being attacked. Furthermore, the moment when she gains focus via her skill concentration will be adjusted, making her able to take advantage of focus acquired instantly. So, I mean, that's pretty nice. I know Silk was one of the units that I used the most when I first started the game, just because I didn't have a lot of different 4-star units, 4-star and 5-star units. So, I mean, she was great in PvE, especially in Abyss, like the early Abyss stages. Khawazu here attacks the enemy with a ball of flame. I don't think many people use Khawazu. With a 50% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns. So this is his flame strike. Before, it was just only a chance to burn for 2 turns. Now it's a chance to decrease defense for 2 turns. And after he attacks, he has a 35% chance to activate Burning Vitality. So Burning Vitality increases combat readiness of the caster by 20%. Flame Strike is his S3, I'm assuming. I wish that they put that on here, like just S1 or S2. Composure, when the caster is debuffed after being attacked, I think this is his passive, dispels all debuffs and increases attack of the caster for 2 turns, can only be activated once every 30 turns. So before his S2 would activate that Burning Vitality, but now his Burning Vitality was switched to combat readiness, and his Flame Strike is a decreased defense. So that's kind of interesting. So they kind of gave him kind of like a cleanse, right? Well, he already had that cleanse, but now his Burning Vitality activates potentially on his S3. So I don't really see him being used in any kind of PvP, but then again, his soul burn now is a 100% chance to decrease defense. Looks a lot like Golem, like a Golem hero, someone that you can just kind of bring in and fully auto. I'm not sure why they're pushing Khawazu buffs into Golem, but then again, you know, they might be doing something there. Captain Rikoris. I know a lot of people also wanted Captain Rikoris buffs, so let's take a look to see what they've done. Looks like they've buffed his Supreme Spear, attacks all enemies with spear art with a 75% chance, max 100% chance to dispel one buff from the target before a 75% chance to restrict for 2 turns. So all he's getting is a restrict. He has a 75% chance to stun the enemy with the highest combat readiness for 1 turn, regardless of whether the attack hits, and recovers the caster's health. Amount recovered increases proportional to the caster's max health. Captain Rikoris will be adjusted so that he can better fight against enemies who consistently increase their combat readiness. Upon using Supreme Spear, he will be able to inflict restrict to contain enemies with combat readiness increase. So he's getting a restrict, but it's only a 75% chance to restrict, which I'm not sure is that great. I think it should be up to 100% chance to restrict, just like his chance to dispel 1 buff, because you know 75% chance, it might as well be 50-50 with RNG here. The artifact Flower Shower is this is Free Spirit Tieria's artifact, right? I believe it is. Increases effectiveness by 7% when an enemy is defeated, increases the attack of the caster for 2 turns. That's after the buff, but now before it has a 50% or max 100% chance to grant increased attack for the caster for 2 turns. So they removed that RNG aspect and gave the artifact increased effectiveness up to 14%. And when you get a kill, the unit gets increased attack for 2 turns. So there's no RNG there anymore. They replaced that with effectiveness. I think that's pretty great, especially if you're using it on Free Spirit Tieria. She does need some effectiveness to land her defense break. And if you're trying to build her to deal damage, this is a really good replacement for some effectiveness in case you don't have any on the gear that you're rolling. Especially when you're starting off, you more than likely will have effectiveness, but then again, also removing that the RNG aspect of that percent chance is also really great. And it looks like that is it for the buffs. So let me know what you guys thought about these buffs so far. Let me know what you think about the Specimen Sez Iseria buffs. I think that finally her getting that 100% chance to do what she needs to do is really nice. Getting some type of defense mitigation with that immortality buff is going to be it's going to be something better for her for sure. Haste buff. Let me know if this is what you were looking for in Haste. I know a lot of people have been calling for Haste buffs. If not, let me know what you would do differently in the comment section below. Like always, if you haven't enjoyed the video, hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, hey, think about subscribing. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people like you who like content like this. Like always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.